meshing those personalities and teaching the young guys not just the skills, but also how to learn and how to learn from guys that maybe aren't. They were machinists aren't always taught how to teach. They're very good at skills.
No.
So all these different personalities. You essentially need a psychology degree to run a shop, as anyone in manufacturing can attest. So learning all of that, I think, has been the biggest thing for us, and we're still making mistakes, but we're learning a lot.
Welcome to the Machine Shop Mastery Podcast, where we uncover the stories behind successful machine shops and their owners. By interviewing current and former shop owners, we dig deep to unveil their secrets of success and the struggles and challenges they've overcome on their paths to building thriving shops. We aim to elevate how important the machining industry is and inspire others by highlighting why owning a shop can be a great vehicle to creating jobs, stimulating the economy, and creating wealth. Here's our host, former machine shop owner himself, Paul Van Meter.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Machine Shop Mastery. Today, I got to sit down with Jack Watson of HFW Industries in Buffalo, New York. And Jack is the fourth generation of this business, which is super duper cool. His great-grandfather started it, I guess, early 50s, whatever, late 40s, just after World War II, when he saw an opportunity with thermal spraying that was, I guess, probably a pretty new technology back then. And as the lore has it, he asked his, company boss at the time if they were interested. He said, no, we don't need that. So he decided to go off and start buy the equipment and start this on his own, literally selling the service out of his car. They've grown over the years immensely. They have about 60 people today, a very large facility there in Buffalo, and serving pretty critical industries, including power generation and lots of other stuff. So we talk about all sorts of really interesting things here. They have a strong apprenticeship program. They do a great job attracting and training their employees. You need to when you have 60 of them and you're growing like they are. Jack said some funny things, including he thought you need a psychology degree to run a business like this. It's all about the people and understanding people. What motivates them is important. He said they've always been really big on management by walking around, right? Being present, being there on the floor at the machines, talking with people, understanding them, asking them for their feedback. He had a very touching story where he went and just gave a simple thank you to someone for doing such a great job, on a recent project. And he said the guy came back the next day almost in tears that he had just never been thanked for his work like that. And it really meant such a great deal. So it's cool that that Jack is now, carrying on this business 4 generations later, with some great wisdom that beyond his years. I do love the part, and you'll hear it soon, where he just kind of gushes on his dad and his grandfather for just admiring them so much for who they are, for how they run their business, their characters, their grit. It's a beautiful thing. So without further ado, let's go have this special episode with Jack Watson. Jack, welcome to the Machine Shop Mastery Podcast. It's good to have you here.
Thanks, Paul. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah. So we have sort of been connected on LinkedIn for a while, and I just love your feed. I love the posts you share talking about the many generations in your family business, and kind of, as you go out and meet other people, and just sort of your passion for the industry. So first of all, thank you for being that passionate about precision manufacturing. Let's first learn about you a little bit, and then the business, and then go back to the very, very beginning, hopefully, if you can, and learn about the history of the business.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm Jack Watson. I'm the fourth generation of my family to work for our family business, HFW Industries, based out of Buffalo, New York. We are leaders in the turnkey thermal spray and hard facing work, which I'm sure we'll get into. So I've been with the business full time for just over about 4 years now. But of course, being a family business, I've been around manufacturing and walking around the shop and the office, and uh, getting to see what goes into a factory since I was a little kid, which in hindsight I'm very grateful for. So been here for 4 years and just getting started, I feel like.
Okay. And what does the business look like today? How many people? What kind of equipment? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so we're about 60 people. We are, like I said, we're a turnkey thermal spray manufacturing services provider. So, what that primarily means is we have a lot of thermal spraying equipment, plasma, HVOF, electric arc, metallizing, as well as pretty much every weld process. The one we're using a lot for overlaying is the plasma transferred arc. But since the beginning, which again we'll get into with the history of the business, we've been very focused on being a one source solution for our customers. So we have full machining, mills, lathes, full cylindrical and surface and ID grinding capabilities, as well as engineering and inspection teams as well.
Right on. Yeah, I'm sure that turnkey service is essential. You don't want to just spray a bunch of stuff on a shaft and hand it back to them and say, "Here you go." They want that precision tolerance or whatever it is that you're going to machine after the fact.
Well, the learning has been great too. It really compounds, and we've really become experts in manufacturing because we see how all the different stages interact. So it's not just we have a lot of experience in metallurgy, and we have several material scientists here, maybe not by degree, but certainly in experience. But then we know how to coat something based on how it will finish because we have the experience finishing it too, and same thing with how to prepare equipment for coding. So that's the kind of knowledge that we drive. And then, it flows back into, even our engineering department, how to design the manufacturing process from the very beginning to help our customers
Hmm.
get the best performance out of their equipment.
Very cool. Awesome.
AI is everywhere right now and it's going to be all over IMTS. But here's the real question. How do you turn buzzwords into actual manufacturing outcome? That's exactly what the IMTS Industrial AI Conference is built for. On Wednesday, September 16th, head to the South Building at IMTS for a one-day practitioner-focused program on reality-based AI for the factory floor. This isn't vague futurism or jargon soup. It's about understanding where AI really fits in manufacturing, from predictive maintenance and quality to edge versus cloud, small models, LLMs, and how to move from problem to purpose to process. If you're trying to figure out what AI can do inside your shop, this is the room you want to be in. Learn more at the link in the show notes or head over to imts.com for more info.
Well, let's go back to the beginning. 4 generations is a long time. Tell us about the very origin of this business.
Yeah. And I'm very blessed because I'm a fan of manufacturing, but I also love history and also, the Great Lakes and the cities that made our country what it is. And our family business here at HFW ties all of that together. So my great grandfather, Harold, was born in a farm town about an hour outside of Cleveland in Thompson. And
Mm,
during World War II, moved to Buffalo at a time when Buffalo was a boom town. He came here on a rigging crew. They were, working, from my understanding, primarily on the grain elevators, which was the industry that put Buffalo on the map initially
mhm.
as the Far East terminus of the Great Lakes prior to the St. Lawrence Seaway opening. And so he was doing that, he was working in a foundry during World War II. It was my understanding that his essential person status working in a manufacturer was actually what got him out of having to enlist in the military during World War II. So still doing something very
Mm,
important, but in the slightly more comfortable confines of a factory as opposed to the war in Europe and Asia. And so it was during
yeah.
that time at the foundry that he came across this new technology, which was the spray gun. And so at the time, I think of it today as, back then it would have been like what 3D printing is today. So
Mhm.
it's this very novel technology that everyone's very enamored with, and he was blown away by what it could do. And working as the maintenance superintendent at the foundry, thought it presented a ton of opportunity for saving time and money and cost on repairs and being able to manage repairs all internally. And so he went to his boss. As many engineers and technical people do, he had this great idea. Went to his boss. His boss wasn't really buying it. Said, "No, I don't really think we need that." And, as the legend goes, which I'm sure has been, jazzed up just a little bit, he was like, "Well, if you're not gonna buy it, I will." And, he went out and he bought some of the first commercially available thermal spray guns on the market. And so
Wow.
that's my great grandfather, Harold. He really became a pioneer in the thermal spray industry. He wrote some of the
Mm.
first or he wrote and advised on some of the first standards that were written by the American Welding Society. And
Oh,
then
very cool.
from the very beginning incorporated machining and grinding and that full turnkey capability. My grandfather comes on board, this is the 60s, so he was machining at far too young of an age, but this was before OSHA and the labor laws we have now.
Sure.
And he came in. My great grandfather, our founder, unfortunately passed away young, and my grandfather took over the business when he was my age. I'm 26.
Oh, wow.
Business was struggling at the time. This was the early 70s. You had, the war in Vietnam, you had the oil crisis. It was a really tough time to be running a manufacturing business. And the bankers told him he had 4 weeks to go
Oh,
before the business
wow.
would have to shut down. My grandfather took that to heart, and we're still here today. My dad joined the business in the 90s, and same thing, he kind of went through some really tough periods. Yeah, obviously 2008,
Mhm.
where we saw the business. In 2008 was actually one of our best years ever as a company, and then 2009 paid a lot of that back. So we've had a lot of history. We've been through a lot of, starting with World War II, and, gone through every major crisis since then, and have really learned how to manage crisis and find opportunities in that, and keep going even when the going gets tough.
Mm. Wow. What a legacy. That's incredible. We'll get maybe a little later, we'll get into how to, and I know you're just a few years into it, but what the company learned about how to manage a crisis, how to respond, how to pivot, how to do whatever to stay resilient. And obviously, you haven't personally lived through it as an adult, but well, maybe COVID. I don't know. We'll
Learned a lot
that
in
was
COVID.
certainly within your lifetime. Um, or your adult life. So, when your great grandfather first started it, did he start in his garage? Did he find a, yeah, just tell me any more details about that. Those are always the most fascinating parts of a business.
Yeah, he bought his first thermal spray gun out of the back of the salesman's car, and then he was then in turn selling his services out of the back of his car. Back in the day, this was in, the early 50s. He was driving to Schenectady every week, selling to GE.
Mm,
Again, he like, as the legend goes, literally bringing donuts and showing up in the engineers and the buyer's office every Monday, whether they liked
hey,
it or not. Now you have security fences and things that prevent some of this. He
sure.
was that from everything I've been told, he was very much the entrepreneurial cowboy. Yeah, started out of a small garage that's actually only a mile or two away from where our facility is today.
Hmm.
Then moved to a slightly bigger garage, then moved to, I would guess, an actual factory, and then in 1965, we moved to the facility that I'm sitting in now.
Hey,
Bit off a lot more than we could chew. We you know, this building's just about 70,000 square feet, and
that's a
so
big place.
yeah, and at the time, it was a huge it almost bankrupted the company, and so it was,
Yeah.
it's great now. We have a lot of space that we're fully utilizing, today, but it took a long time to get there. There were a lot of lessons learned through that.
Hmm. Yeah, I can relate. When my shop moved from, I think, about 2,500 square feet to 10,000 right before 9/11,
Oh.
that that nearly bankrupted us as well. So, we had a much bigger rent payment. We didn't own the building, but yeah, not only the expense of moving and then having this big expense, but then our, 80% of our work dried up. So, um, yeah, yeah. But you can't foresee those kind of things, and you sometimes got to make those growth moves because you're out of space, or you need, customers are demanding you grow with them, or what have you. So cool stories though about your grandfather just showing up. I can just, yeah, imagine he could just almost walk through the door with a box of donuts and say, "Hey, everybody!" And today it's security badges and fences and sign-ins and ITAR and all the things. So
Well, he
um,
had the benefit of not having email either. I think it was probably actually easier to sell back then when it was mostly face to face, or I suppose over the phone as well. But
sure.
now everything gets lost in endless inboxes.
That is a good point. That is a good point. Is GE still a client? And like, yeah, tell us about the range of industries that you guys serve.
Yeah, so I mean, what's incredible is so many of the customers that my great grandfather went out and won early in the business are still customers today. So we primarily serve power generation, chemical manufacturing, and then a lot of general industrial. There's some high tech applications with specialty electronics. with a lot of the ceramic coatings in particular.
Oh, wow.
So a lot what we say is a lot of critical industry and critical infrastructure that really forms the baseline of any modern economy.
Hmm. And is it all like maintenance and repair work, or are you spraying stuff on like brand new parts that are going into production? And
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that actually, because so thermal spray coating started as a repair process, back in the 40s and 50s and 60s. And it's really evolved since then to where now thermal spray coatings are used in many components of new manufactured equipment. So think if you're thinking things like a gas turbine or an airplane engine or a semiconductor chamber. Thermal spray coatings are used to enhance the properties of whatever they're being applied to, or
Mhm.
protect against destructive forces like
Right.
erosion, corrosion, mechanical wear, things like that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So you machine a big shaft, you want it to have a ceramic coating on it so it can survive in some crazy environment. So you go ahead and spray that on, you grind it or somehow machine it down to the tolerance you want, and then that's the finished part, brand new part. Is that about right?
Yeah, and we really think that the value of the turnkey operation is that we have all that knowledge in house, like I was saying, because we've seen so many times where a customer insists, "Oh, we can finish it in house. We can do that part ourselves." And what we've learned through just about 80 years of experimenting is that, a good coating is really a system. So it's not just spraying the coating, but it's what you did before, it's what you did after. And those all work together to produce either a successful application or something that ends in failure. So that's having that experience and being able to control each piece of that process gives us the ability to use all that knowledge and build a really tight product for our customer.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Yeah. So you mentioned ceramics. I imagine you guys must machine some pretty tough and hard materials, right? The stuff you're spraying on is, I guess, by definition, supposed to be really tough and hard. And there must be a lot to learn and know about, the actual cutting conditions, inserts, coating grades, all that kind of stuff. I imagine there's quite a bit there.
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse. I've grown up around it, like I said, so I thought this was normal, coating and machining and grinding some of these materials that are, 50 RC and above. And our guys are doing things that, according to textbooks, aren't possible. So it's
Mm,
really impressive, some of these materials that aren't supposed to be doing the things they are, and our guys have found really novel ways to achieve the surface finish our customers need, or the profile, or even perform things. Like I said, that we've even in some cases advised the customer, we would not advise you to do this. We really don't think this is going to work. The customer's like, well, it's R&D. Go ahead and try it. And when we try it, and our guys crushed it, and it worked really well. And there's so many examples of that, and that where I think that just goes to great partnership. But yeah, it's someone told me, "Man, I hate grinding coatings. That stuff's terrible." And I was like, "Well, then you can't work here because we do that every single day." So
Hey, folks, listen up. You know that manufacturing buyers don't ask simple questions. They're asking about product compatibility, materials, specs, lead times, application fit, and they want answers before they even talk to sales. That's where Navu comes in. Navu adds AI chat to your website trained on your own content so visitors can get reliable, accurate answers in real time. It helps buyers find the right product, understand the right application, and take the next step without forcing your team to answer the same questions over and over. And setup is simple. Navu works with your existing website. It connects with tools like HubSpot, Salesforce, and Slack, and gives you visibility into what visitors are actually asking. See what your website has to say at navu.co/making chips. That's navu.co/making chips.
any examples that isn't giving away your IP of just some nearly impossible task that you guys have figured out?
yeah, I mean, so we've applied, and again, some of it has to be proprietary, but just even the interaction of, a base material with different materials, whether it's a ceramic or carbide or also, certain thicknesses. A lot of times the thickness will kill you. If you go too thick, you're going to get cracking certain
Mm,
geometries. And our guys have, again, with, working with customers who have demanding requirements and are really out of all other options. We've worked alongside them and found manufacturing solutions that
mhm.
solve, critical problems that are in, making products that we use for, when you turn the lights on or, that keep firefighters or soldiers safe. So it's really neat. And again, that's where I think we really specialize in finding a solution
Mm.
for a customer because we don't have a product. We're not selling iPhones or whatever, or have a product line where we're selling 10,000 pieces of something. We're working side by side with the customer to solve really challenging manufacturing and materials problems.
So I gotta believe, maybe even more than straight subtractive machining, that there's a lot of both art and science to what you do, and a lot of potentially tribal knowledge, right? Someone that's done it for, potentially decades and knows the insides and outs. How are you guys doing on your labor force with young people coming into the business, getting that knowledge transferred down to people that aren't about to retire in the next few years? I know that's a big challenge in many shops, and with 60 people there, you probably are facing it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of the biggest obstacles that we and most people in manufacturing have to figure out if we're going to be successful over the next 10, 15, 20 years. So we're very focused on further building out our apprenticeship program. To me, honestly, from everything I've read, again, going back to history, I think reestablishing a lot of what we had when manufacturing in the United States was great. So you had really great apprenticeship programs, you had trade schools, and not that those things ever went away, but I think they were kind of shoved to the side or, there
A
was
lot
a
of them went away.
yeah, a lot of them did go away, but there are still some great, trade
There
schools that
are.
we work with and,
Yeah.
I mean, but they're facing the same challenge, that a lot of the instructors are just as old as the people that are coming, going to be retiring in our business. So the challenge is just showing off what we do and showing how cool it is. I think that's the first thing, getting more people interested in manufacturing and showing how important it is, igniting that spark in someone. And then the next thing is just training, 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 training. It sounds really, that I see there's a lot of banter online about the importance. I think everyone recognizes the importance of it, but it's not sexy. It's not, there's no magic solution. I think it's just time and experience. And that's what we've learned. And, just learning that we'd rather buy some cheap material and have a young guy screw around on that than screw up a, $100,000 part. So, even little things like this, like a lot of things, a lot of the lessons are learned the hard way, but our focus always with, especially some of the younger guys on our team is, okay, even if you made a mistake that was costly, we have a pretty good record. We don't really beat someone up too badly over something. As long as the lesson was learned and we take notes and we get better from it each and every time. We've got a pretty good mix of guys right now as far as age.
Mhm.
Our average tenure is about 10 years, which is actually down a little bit because we had some of those guys that had 45 plus years of experience. But we've got some younger guys that are coming in too. We've had to learn how to, and especially me, I've, learning how to mesh, all these different generations. And some of these guys coming in could, some of the older guys could be their dads or even their grandpas. So, meshing those personalities and teaching the young guys not just the skills, but also how to learn and how to learn from guys that maybe aren't. They were, machinists aren't always taught how to teach. They're very good
No.
at skills. So all these different personalities, you essentially need a psychology degree to run a shop, as anyone in manufacturing can attest. So learning all of that, I think, has been the biggest thing for us. And we're still making mistakes, but we're learning a lot.
I love that. Need a psychology degree to run a shop. Yeah, any shop that, or any business that employs people probably has to, yeah, have a strong focus on that because people are finicky. On that note, you said you do work with some trade schools, and tell us about your apprenticeship program. You mentioned it already. So yeah, what are you doing there to make that a strong pathway?
Well, we're exposing people to the work we do first and foremost. So, yeah, myself and our team spend a lot of time with the schools in our area, going around showing what we do. And I would much rather. I just invite the classes in and walk them around, get some pizza, and just talk. manufacturing and kind of try to infect everyone with the love of building things. And it's so much more fun for me and for them to show off what we do in action as opposed to sitting in a classroom scrolling through a PowerPoint. So I'm just such a big believer. We do family days as well.
Nice.
At this point in my career, I'm focused a lot on sales. And what I've realized is that recruiting and sales are pretty much the same thing. From the recruiting angle, it's about, making that funnel as big as possible, getting as many young minds and experienced minds engaged on our company and what we do. And then just once you bring them in, I think a lot of times that's where it stops. But we've realized, that we have to have a very focused onboarding process and then training and training, even for an experienced person, someone who might have 10 or 15 or 20 years given the very precise nature of the work we're doing, that training period can take 2 to 4 to 5 years at a minimum. That's where it goes to finding the right person that you think is gonna stick around a long time, which is it's a challenge, but I see a lot of, pessimism around that, but I really feel that there are such a great crop of younger people in particular who are coming out and want to, have impact in their life and want to do something tangible and produce great things and build a great community around them. So for me, it's just about attracting those kind of people and then building a really great structure to give them the technical skills as they learn on the job. And thankfully, we've got a great team of guys here who have been on the job for 30 years or 25 years or several decades. And so finding and most people, once if you treat them well and you're willing to learn, a lot of especially the old grizzled veterans are more willing to teach than they initially let on. And we find that pairing a young guy with an older guy can be really beneficial for both sides.
Mhm. Mhm. And so is that your your formal apprenticeship program is bringing someone in and pairing them with an experienced person? Is there some kind of curriculum or some kind of, structured process there?
Yeah, right now the curriculum is we do have a curriculum. It's a little bit, I guess, flexible. We are actually working on making it, a much more structured over the next couple of years, having, even a little bit of classroom time or up here in a conference room with whether it's our engineers or our plant manager, learning some of the technical side, and then, having dedicated hours on a machine doing different skills related to our business because that's what we've realized is the trade schools are a great start, but I think where we and many manufacturers maybe erred was thinking that you're ever going to be able to take someone straight from trade school and turn them into a productive employee. It really is an investment in a couple years, and that's why we try to find the right person. And now we're working on making essentially continuing their education from trade school or even another employer coming in and really teaching them the HFW way. I mean, we're like I said, we're kind of in the process of building out the HFW way as we speak and making it so that we can take anyone who has a will and a way and a decent amount of intelligence and turn them into a world class tradesman or tradeswoman.
So good. With the employees you've hired maybe in the last 5 or 10 years, most of them have they mostly come through that sort of pathway from a school of some kind that have in for tours and then, put them into your apprenticeship program?
Yeah, it's been a mix. It's probably over the last couple years, it's probably been about 50-50. New people, younger students coming straight out of school versus older, a little bit more experienced veterans. For instance, in our thermal spray department, every thermal spray operator we have has been trained in house because it's not unlike machining, which
Right.
most trade schools will have machining. You don't learn thermal spray. There aren't too many thermal spray programs, so those guys have all been taught in house. It's a lot of learning on the job, which involves chemistry and metallurgy and even a lot of the machining, the mechanical skills as well. But yeah, we've got a good mix. It's not just trade school students. I think someday we may get there, but because yeah, we're always looking for the needle in a haystack and the experienced person who is just has moved on from their previous job for one reason or another and is just looking for work. But I've also come to realize that just that those are the needles in the haystack and trying to search for those. I think our efforts better invested in building out a really robust onboarding program for people that are newer to the trade.
Hmm. All right. Yeah, I want to dig into this a little more since it's such a big topic for most folks. So beyond, the trade schools and connecting with them, doing tours and talking to them? I mean, I've had people on the show where they're literally, their logo is plastered up at the stadium of their local high school because they're just constantly trying to keep their logo and their brand sort of top of mind for young people. I've had some that have talked about doing literally targeted Facebook ads to people that are, 16 to 22. Anything that's been particularly effective to get that s- yeah, get that moving. And I love the fact that you said, doing sales and doing recruiting and onboarding, it's like the same thing. You need to sell them on your business, whether you're going to sell them parts or sell them a job. So I love that way of thinking about it. So yeah, what tactics have been particularly helpful and useful?
Well, first and foremost, I think maybe one underutilized one is word of mouth. And that's one that some of our best employees have come through word of mouth and referrals. So first and foremost, just being a good employer helps. I'm not never going to claim we're perfect, but I think we have a good track record of treating people quite well, and that's very important to us, and will be increasingly important to us as we continue. So that's number one. But yeah, I mean, for me, we're trying to be all over social media. We're not like we're certainly not at the top of the manufacturing influencers, but getting like I said, what we do is really cool. So showing off the work we're doing every day as much as we can. Obviously, you know, the most frustrating part is the coolest stuff we can never show, but we can
Hmm.
show enough to get a good flavor and draw intrigue as to what we're doing. So that's again to relate back to the sales piece of recruiting. That's the funnel and getting that interest, and then we found a lot of people that, maybe would not have given manufacturing a shot through those angles. And, I think like I said, the video content, especially the video and photos, and anytime you can show off what you do and get the word out about it, because it's really super neat. I mean, whether it's machining or thermal spraying or welding or grinding, I mean, just all manufacturing is really cool. And where you take this product and manipulate it in some way to enhance it and create value. I mean, it's really cool, and it's what built this nation, what builds our world. And um, I think what's been awesome is seeing that I feel like there has been a movement of people that are more interested in that. And so now we have to it goes back to the training. It's the harder piece where you have to get people that are willing to commit for a couple years, and we are willing to commit for a couple years. But our philosophy has been, as far as how to find people, really just to try a little bit of everything. Same thing with sales too. I don't think there's one like proven method. I think it's a lot of, planting seeds in each different bucket and knowing that not everyone's going to sprout, but if you water them and tend them, you're going to get a nice batch.
Hmm. Awesome. Well, thank you for all that. Yeah, that's good. So, as far as making it a great workplace, that so people do want to share the word of mouth and tell their friends about it, tell their family about it. What are some of the things you guys do to be a great employer?
Well, I mean, the first and foremost is pay. I mean, that's pretty standard. I think for a while that was the focus, and so over the last several years, we focused on just tangible things, and on the benefit side, we've always had good benefits, whether it's healthcare and tuition assistance, which is a great one, especially for younger people.
Hmm.
Um, we pay for up to 90% of career related
Wow,
education.
good for you guys.
So, and it's actually one of our most underutilized benefits too. So it's a great perk for someone who wants to better themselves and achieve more in their career. And then just the little things, and not going a little bit further than just the pizza parties. I know I've seen the complaints of, oh, the pizza parties are getting old. So we do little things. We like to do surprises. We try to always do a great job of acknowledging a job well done, and bringing in great people that you want to work around too. I think we've done a nice job over the last several years of bringing in, people that are fun to work with, and you know, make you know, make a bad day better. And then likewise, we've done a good job of on the off occasion where we've had a couple people that have been, not so fun to be around. We've made sure that we've mutually parted ways, and I think, making sure that we do a good job with listening to people. That's one thing I've always, again, relating back to sales. I think if you can listen to people. I've been amazed at what people will say, and how much people are thankful that you are just willing to listen to their perspective.
Hmm. I love that. That's not something that I've heard a lot of times on the show. Tell me what that looks like to be a really good listener. What type of topics? What type of is it one-on-one meetings? Is it just pulling someone aside if they have an idea or just letting them know your door is always open to ideas or improvements or feedback of any kind? What does that look like?
Yeah, what I found is it's a lot of walking around and allowing people to get comfortable with you. I think sometimes it's easy to say, "Yeah, my door's open. You can always come talk to me." But people, I think, feel intimidated by that, and one of the greatest lessons that my grandfather has taught me, and he's ingrained in my father as well, and our whole leadership team that everyone here exhibits is management by walking around. And a lot of the conversations, you really get to know people, and just by listening, asking pretty basic questions and then just being quiet and letting them talk and kind of think through their thoughts, you get some really great feedback. And I had one guy, I just he did a nice job on a recent project, and I just went up to him and just thanked him, and nothing big. Like, I don't mean it was like, I did what I would hope most people would do, if someone did a really nice job on a project. And the next day, he just came up to me and he almost had tears in his eyes. He's like, No one's ever thanked me in that way for doing my job." And
Mm,
I was just like, that was like a light bulb moment for me. I see a lot of the commentary online, and people are very discontent in their jobs, or a job is just something that they do to make money, and then they go home and do what they're really passionate about. And as we always say, and my dad's a big believer in this, every day is not going to be perfect, and we don't expect that this is everyone's dream job. They don't wake up dreaming of machining every day, but we want this to be a great place to work where you feel comfortable and you can come and be the best version of yourself. And yeah, hearing those kind of comments really opened my eyes to you know how much the little things can have an impact on the workplace and the people.
that's a great story. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I agree. Sometimes it's just those just small personal touches that you may not think that much about, but just have such a profound effect on people. And being seen, being appreciated, being acknowledged, that connects at a pretty deep level for many people. And it's possibly more important than give them a little cash bonus or whatever. I mean, those are nice as well, but yeah, makes it more human, that connection between you and the team. That's awesome.
Well, especially in a world today where we're so connected, but we've never been more unconnected. I think just the human touch a lot of times is lost, and so
Hmm.
whether that's with our customers, where everything's email, or even if you're talking on the phone, there are people that work together for 20 years and never seen each other face to face, and same thing with some
Yeah.
of our machinists. Just even bringing the customers in and introducing them, like, "Hey, this is a guy that works on that job and crushes it for you guys." Um, I mean, we are, and I'm grateful to work in a place that has always valued the face-to-face interaction and going and seeing people, and I think, the example we were just sharing is exactly why.
Hmm. Hmm. Excellent. Hey, it's Paul from Making Chips. If you've been burned by recruiters who don't understand manufacturing, you are not alone. That's exactly why we created Hire MFG Leaders. We're not just recruiters, we're current and former shop owners, and we know what it takes to lead in this industry. Whether you're hiring your next operations leader, sales manager, or production supervisor, we'll help you find someone who actually fits. Learn more at makingchips.com/hire. So you mentioned earlier about might have been easier in the old days when it was face to face or phone, and now it's just endless inboxes. How do you connect with people? How you're working in sales? Yeah, what are you doing that's working to connect with and making something meaningful with a new customer?
Well, for as much as I was, joking about emails, I really feel like the cell phone and social media are the greatest weapon on you, as someone, if you want to better yourself or your career, or your company. Honestly, for me, I just found by being my true self, which is kind of a nerd, and posting about that stuff online, I've found a lot of like-minded people who have been really, really interesting, and not only getting to meet them, but then they introduced me to their buddy who's doing something really neat, who then introduced me to this other person. So just kind of like developing. I mean, it's the true definition of a social network. which I think, obviously there's a lot of focus now on the negativity and the downsides of social media, but I would counter that. If you're intentional, there are so many great things you can do with it. You and I met on social media, so it's
Yep.
and I meet so many people every week, and we've won work through people seeing my stuff, which also reminds me I need to be careful what I say and not run my mouth too much. But everyone craves that human connection, and so like I've learned by just not trying to be too much of a salesperson, just being my authentic self and talking about the stuff that's interesting to me. People, open up and start to share their perspectives as well, and I've gotten to know some really cool people doing that.
Hmm. Well, I can just, in the 38 minutes we've been recording so far, I can definitely feel your passion for it come through. So I love that you just share it authentically online, and like attracts like, and yeah, you find people that just resonate with your vibe and what you're interested in, and that has that compounding effect. That's awesome. Beyond maybe some of the hard parts that your company has gone through with economy or other challenging periods, can you reflect on any just sort of significant things that your company did over the whether it was your dad or your grandfather or what have you, that really helped the trajectory of the business and the growth and some of the best decisions you guys have made all the years?
Yeah. Well, I'll start with my grandfather, because when the business was on the brink of failure, that really shaped a lot of who he was and his business philosophy, and it is the reason we're still here today. It really shaped his perspective on money, and it's easy to understand why, because at the time when the business was failing, he was newly married. My dad had just been bored. My dad's sister was on the way, and my grandparents had just built a house. I've heard the story so many times that my grandmother always tells me they had purchased a mattress that they left in the box in the garage because they were afraid it was about to be repossessed if the business went under. And
Oh
so
man.
when that is your background and that is happening in your formative years, I think it's been very clear to me why my grandfather has shaped the business in the way he has, which has been very conservative growth. We don't carry debt. We usually have a good amount of cash on hand. We do carry lines of credit for machine upgrades and strategic decisions, but and so it's been good. I've learned a lot from my grandfather, and I'm trying to balance that too, because obviously I'm young and hungry, and I see this fantastic business we have, and I want to grow, and I see all the opportunity out there, but also want to learn from what my grandfather's learned from the hard way, and been able to rise above, and so honor that and take that and kind of mold it to the things that I want to do, and then to discuss my dad too. I mean, just one of the sharpest guys I have the pleasure of knowing, getting to work with every day, and I don't he doesn't get enough credit because he's too humble and he's too quiet. He's a really, really sharp mind, and, one thing that obviously when you look at growth and you look at, where a business is going, you obviously everyone wants to look at the top line revenue number, and, one thing I don't think my dad necessarily gets enough credit for is, back in the 80s and 90s, web offset print cylinders were a huge business for us, where we had a full turnkey rebuild of these particular lines, and we were the industry leader.
Mm,
Well, obviously, with the advent of the cell phone, people aren't reading as many physical newspapers or
yep.
magazines, and they aren't printing out the Sunday coupons anymore. And so that business went from being a large, I think it was on nearly half of our business, to being zero.
Hmm.
And my dad basically rebuilt half the business by focusing on new industries, building out industries that we'd always been in, but had more potential there. And so he's really like when I think of my dad, I just think of really understated intelligence and also just a whole heck of a lot of grit and resilience. And both my grandfather and my dad got into manufacturing when everyone was saying manufacturing was a terrible industry to be in. Why would you do that when you could go work in banking or
Hmm.
private equity or consulting or something easier? And my dad's friends went to work in tech and told them that they were going to be retired by 30. Turns out they're still working. So the dot com bubble silenced them very quickly. So
Yep.
there's a lot of learning there, and I just both my dad and my grandfather are very understated people, and it's not necessarily natural for me to do all this talking because I grew up around learning to be very understated and cool, calm, and collected. And I like to think I am, but I also want to show off the great thing we have here. And that's a a testament to what the men before me have built.
Well, I think you're striking a perfect balance, and I appreciate the humbleness, but at the same time, learning from those that are wise and have made good choices and what they've done. That's what this show is all about. So, yeah, appreciate you highlighting them. Are both of them still working in the business today? Is your grandfather retired or?
He's semi-retired, so yeah, I think he's in the perfect position for both him and the business. He comes and goes as he pleases and, probably works more than my grandmother would like, but, he's a huge asset to us because 'cause he's got 60 plus years of knowledge, so
I love it. I smile when people say, they come and go as they please. I love that, they've earned the right. The system's in place. The next generation is working. Like they can just kind of enjoy doing whatever aspect they enjoy the most, and they contribute in their way. But if he decided he was, heading to Florida for a month, the business would run just fine. But that's awesome. That's great.
yeah, it's funny you say I tell him, and it's true. I think he's the perfect example of the American dream, and I think it's another, it's a perfect example of what the manufacturing can create. And he's lived a great life. He has a great family, and he's still going strong. By the way, I don't mean to write him
Mhm.
off here, but yeah, I think it's that what he's created, what my dad's created, what so many people in our business have created. That's what I want to do for my family and our team here.
Okay. So, I don't know if you can share this, but do you have siblings in the business or is it just yourself?
So I'm the oldest of 4. My 2 middle
Okay.
brothers are in law school, and my youngest is
Okay.
finishing up high school. So,
Okay.
remains to be seen. Don't sue me though, because I do know some people. But yeah, right now I'm the only one full time in the business. We'll see if that changes.
Okay. Okay. So, would the plan be that your generation, however many of you decide to be in the business, will eventually own it and kind of transition that ownership from, whoever has it today?
Yeah, that's absolutely the plan. My grandfather they're kind of in the process now of a lot of the estate planning, and same thing with my dad. And yeah, but the intention is for my generation to take over, and the actual construction of that is still being worked out as we speak. But, we're super excited to be a fourth generation, and it would fully be my intention to pass it on and be a fifth generation. And I guess probably 25 or 30 years or so at least. So that's
Sure.
the goal at least.
Yeah, you're a young guy. That's awesome. That's awesome. And it's good on you guys for doing that in I guess a planned out methodical process. I definitely have heard of businesses where they didn't put much intentionality into that and then possibly, at, when it's too late, a health issue forces some kind of, situation in a really compressed time or it's just messy. So it's the general guidance is to do it early, be lots of good communication, and yeah, do it in a structured process. So that's great that you guys are doing that.
Well, it sounds nice. There are always, areas that still have to be smoothed out. But the great thing is, my family, we all get along most days, so that makes everything a lot easier.
That's as much as you can ask for, I think. You talked about methodical growth, but at the same time, you talked about just being really excited about the potential. What kind of things are you hoping to do, and how's it been on the demand side, for the opportunity to grow in the last few years?
Yeah, well, the last few years have been going gangbusters, at least on the obviously the power generation side of our business with
Mm.
artificial intelligence and gas turbines. We always say we know we're at a high right now because there are way too many people talking about gas turbines that did not know what a gas turbine was a couple months ago. So, we again, we're trying to learn from the many years of experience we've had, and knowing that this even though this looks like a great cycle, it is still a cycle. I'm excited about a lot of the technological advances of thermal spray and incorporating a lot of the complex machining and finishing with that as well. So, we got our first 5-axis machine several years back now, but, even incorporating that and with the coatings as well, the coating technology in the last several years has come a tremendous way. And so I'm excited to explore the robotic applications and a lot of the more advanced technical stuff. It's going to take a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of experimentation. And I've already broken a lot of equipment trying new things, but I'm excited to see where it can take us because you know we're fortunate for is that the work we're doing, there are only a few companies in the world that can do it well, and you learn a lot of hard lessons, but it's worth it in the end. So I'm really excited to see where that takes us, and just I try to remember to trust the process and appreciate the learning that comes with time. And I know if we do all the right things, we focus on the people development, we focus on paying attention to the trends in manufacturing, and then in adopting the new technologies and finding ways to get better. The future is incredibly bright.
Nice. I love it. Well, sounds like the business is in great hands with you and this generation. So that's fantastic. So if people want to learn more and understand more about what you do or how you might be able to serve them or come apply with you, where do you direct people?
Yeah, so hfwindustries.com is our website. That's the hub for the, obviously the sales and the recruiting. And then me personally, if you search Jack Watson, HFW, very active on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So you're more than welcome to message me there. I am usually pretty good about getting back to people, and I love having conversations with interesting people across manufacturing and industry.
Right on, Jack. Very good. Well, thank you again for coming on and sharing your family's history and journey. Sounds like I would love to come visit at some point if I'm up in that area. So yeah, appreciate you sharing and helping inspire the manufacturing nation out here.
No, I mean, Paul, it's been an honor. I've learned a lot from your podcast. So to be on here is a really cool moment. And hopefully I can share some of the knowledge that we've gained over 80 years as well.
Undoubtedly, you have. So awesome, Jack. Well, thank you again so much. I appreciate you being on the show, and we'll see you around sometime.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye bye.